I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Were there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Yeah, agenda item number 4, we're gonna take off there, not ready to present.
Okay.
The community garden.
Okay.
Age to age community.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? And a second? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Consent agenda.
One quick question. It works 196 days a year, so janitor's work and custodian and all the other one, or she,
Who's she?
the assistant, high school administrative assistant?
No, she would have, no. Custodians?
But
No.
she's covered all 12 months for health insurance.
Yeah.
Do we do that usually with part-time?
Well, for teachers are 9 months too,
Right.
so it's, yeah.
Okay, made a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll make that motion. Can we get a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public participation, anybody sense for that? No? No sheets? Okay. Presentations and we had a request to do PLCs first, is that, doesn't matter.
I have to babysit
That's a babysit.
in Duluth.
Is that okay? Do you mind? Okay.
So we,
All right.
we will do less than 3 minutes.
You guys have less than,
Oh,
no.
We each get 2.5.
All right.
Alright, 1 second here. I didn't know we did this quick.
So one of the things that you had asked for is what are they really doing in the PLCs? And so the last time people got up here, they were talking about the broad, this is what a PLC looks like here. And Megan and Joanne are gonna talk specifically about what they do in the PLCs, so.
I can remember my password.
If you can't, we're gonna let ICS, no.
So I can start
Want
with
to join her?
All right.
So I teach 2nd grade and this year our leaders, we decided we would be unpacking standards. We were picking our standards. I just want to let you know how many standards we have in 2nd grade. So I have 20 standards for math and about 45 for reading. And our ideas are to look through those standards and to see what we're teaching, because we all know how our reading was. So we have to get back to the basics, which is the phonics approach, sight words. That's what we're doing. We're digging into them and we're taking them to apply them to our students in a real way. So I just want to kind of address that really quickly and realize that we're in the trenches with our test scores and that we take it very seriously. And I just like to put a plug in for all of us in the elementary, how hard we're working and how seriously we take this, so that we are putting in extra effort and time. I'm primary, I can speak for how hard we are working in the primary. One of the things we have learned in our PLCs is that I know what they're doing in kindergarten. I know what they're doing in 1st grade. I follow through with 2nd grade. So that's kind of where my flow is. And then when we get together as a group and we are building, our culture is to collaborate. So then when we get together, we understand what we're doing, what needs to be started in kindergarten and come to fruition in 6th grade. So,
Alright, so just a little bit more about unpacking standards. So for me specifically, I just teach 5th grade math and 6th grade math. So for 5th grade math, there's 27 standards. For 6th grade math, there's 34 standards. So part of this unpacking standards, and this is just real quick, I'm just gonna look at the top here, and if you want to read the small print, go ahead. So when we're unpacking a standard for each one of those, we're looking at some major questions. So for example, what do we want all students to know and be able to do? with whatever standard this is. Scroll on here. So for each one of our standards, I would fill in underneath each one of these smaller questions. The next broad question is, how will we know if they have learned it? Okay, so what are they going to produce for me? How am I going to know that, yes, they've mastered the skill? In a sense, then they'll master it on the MCAs. The next category then would be, what rich learning experiences do all kids need to experience for this concept or skill? So how am I going to teach this to the kids? What am I going to do in the classroom to provide them with the skills they need? And I swear, it's the laptop here, not the scope and sequence, that's where we get our vertical alignment. So as a 5th and 6th grade math teacher, I need to look and see what is 4th grade doing? What is 4th grade doing flow into what I do in 5th grade? And then I talk to myself about what I do in 5th and 6th grade. And then it also leads into, I sit in with high school teachers and we talk about what I'm doing in 5th and 6th grade and how that then affects them in 7th grade. So the unpacking the standards, that's just one piece of what we do. Another, just quick, in the elementary, we've looked at how we're going to eventually implement standards-based grading. So we've done a book study, we're still in the process of doing the book study. And just a plug for the book, this is something that all stakeholders really should be reading, and it's not just us as teachers, it's you as school board members, it's our administration, we all need to read the book so that we get on the same page with a lot of different processes before we can implement standards-based grading, which unpacking the standards will easily flow into standards-based grading. So that's our quick nutshell, because we know we're only here till 6 o'clock. But I would welcome any quick questions,
So
concerns.
this matrix is what you use for every standard, so it's the same questions,
I mean,
pretty much, and.
There are different formats of these same questions, like I can speak for 4th grade, has the same type of questions, but they have it laid out another way. It's all breaking down the depth of knowledge that we need the kids to get to for each one of the standards.
But you can see how many standards we have
Yeah.
to go through. 20 doesn't sound like an awful lot, but, and we're working on 1st grade, or 2nd grade math, it's like telling time and measurement and stuff. The reading is really the one that's very complex and in-depth, and that's the one that we have to really concentrate on. So you're welcome, I know Jerry's come to my room, you're welcome to come into our classroom and see how we do things. You're always welcome, the door's open, and I probably can speak for everybody that you want to have more questions for us.
How often do you do this?
We're doing it every Wednesday morning for about 45 minutes, it doesn't seem very long. If you would like to give us time and pay us, we would do it for a whole straight week, I know it's all about money, but it's time consuming, and if you wanna do it right, you have to, it's gonna take a while. So don't think anything's gonna turn around in a year and you're gonna see this great strengths. As we're digging into them, I can tell you, we're so cognizant of what we have to do, but that we will be working toward them, understanding what we have to do. I think we've all understood it. Maybe we worked a little in isolation. And now I think with our PLCs, which is communicating and becoming a great team together. So,
Do you think this process will also help us better identify kids that may need more additional help in terms of their learning disabilities or challenges that we may not have been easily been able to identify before this process?
I think part of this unpacking process and then the eventual moving to standards-based grading, a kid can get an A by just doing school well. Whereas with standards-based grading, and it's more of a rubrics, and if a kid gets a 3, they've demonstrated that they can do this skill to some certain depth of knowledge. Whereas a kid can get an A by sometimes just handing in all the work. Whether or not they've done the work well, they've still handed in the work. So I think this will eventually lead, we're not gonna be there by the end of this year, but it eventually will lead to, okay, who are the kids who are constantly 1s and 2s across the board as we're thinking about standards-based grading? And then those kids, we hopefully have other things in place for them.
it also helps us to know what we have to do and to really dig into it ourselves. Yes.
What do you need from the board in order to better do or continue the job you're doing, that you're not getting now?
Time and money.
Well,
How long?
money, but
So in your 45-minute PLC on Wednesday,
It goes fast.
do you do one standard, do you think? Do you do two?
We can get one done, and some are ahead of us.
Okay.
Some groups, I'm a little slower, little brain doesn't work as fast, so I'm not as, say, some of those younger ones go really fast. So, but to dig into it, and then for me, I wanna be so thorough and I wanna really understand. So and then I think, okay, gotta do it this way, and then it has to internalize into me so that I can present it to my students. So my grade partner and I, we're gonna get a day in staff development, and we'd like to work on that. So that's something, but it is, it's like a work in progress. But there's other things that come out of that that are even better than saying, okay, these are the standards. It's the collaboration, it's the communication between all of us K through 6. So we know what we're doing, so the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. That's as important as us individually digging into it. So, okay, what are you doing in 3rd grade? Oh, Megan will say, this is what we're doing in 5th grade, and I say, okay, maybe I introduce a part of it, and then it's all part of that.
Mhm.
Is this kind of helping with morale, being more of a team than just some individual?
I would say it is.
And I would say part of, so the unpacking the standards is one piece, the book study being another piece. There were, maybe 3 weeks in a row that we met to discuss different chapters, and that gives us a chance to actually have valuable discussions. And learn, that's our PLC is all about learning from one another,
Right.
and we can't learn from one another unless we're having those
do
discussions.
they have that book available for us
We all.
in the office, or where do we get it?
All
We
the
are.
elementary teachers have one now, that is a school, staff development bought them, so I would imagine once they're finished reading, it'll be in our, I think it's called the staff development library.
Yeah.
So I fully get that you can't expect overnight results. I fully understand that. But are there metrics or measurements in place that you guys have discussed, or maybe the book describes engaging, okay, are we taking the right steps? 3 months down the road, as opposed to waiting for a whole year and the results being similar. So what kind of measurements or metric systems do you guys apply to this?
So part of the unpacking the standards would also be creating different assessments, formative assessments along the way.
Okay.
So, I'm what you'd call a singleton. I'm the only one teaching 5th grade and 6th grade math.
Okay.
But take, for example, 4th grade. There's 2 teachers teaching 4th grade. They both create these same common assessments, use the assessments in their class, and then those would be the metrics that they would use to decide, okay, have we met the benchmark? Have we not met the benchmark? Has this group of kids met the benchmark? Because their formative assessments, they're based on, taking the scope and taking the test specs and, questions that we have there, taking that information and using that to form their formative assessment. So that, it's all
And that's-
work in progress.
We're also working on that, but then we also have, we're all doing fast testing to see how our kids have moved from September to January, and then we'll do it in May. And we test them, it takes about a week, and we're testing them in math, fluency, and reading skills. And so we can see how, that also helps us, okay, gee, did I miss something here? Or what am I doing here? So that's like a longer piece, but, yeah. And we can see how our kids are doing just on our own, with our own judgment and our own small little tests along the way, or assessments along the way. We can see, we all work for that. We all work for that progress, and we all work for them to be successful.
Are you feeling the progress?
Yeah, and I feel pressure too. So it's both, I feel it. They look really good, by the way. Haven't seen it for ages.
Do you see that the kids are moving forward?
I'm seeing it in my classroom. I'm seeing progress. So,
This is
didn't mean
great.
to take more than 5 minutes, so.
This is great. Anybody any other questions? Look at you.
And like I said, you can come and
We'll
ask.
come up with 100 other questions after you guys leave.
Well,
so
come in,
we'll
come in,
come in
I'll
and-
stick around.
Yeah.
She can,
Thank you.
My
Thank
son
you guys.
has
Nice
conferences
work.
I have to.
This is exciting stuff.
Thank
right?
you.
So, yeah, thank you. All right, bond discussion ICS.
Natalie's here, so Natalie, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you. I'm gonna start my timer, because I said 20 minutes, and I will hold to it. Natalie Hoffman, ICS, we've been working along the progress here, and last night, Lynn Dwyer and Dyer and I met with the staff. There was a staff meeting after school at 3 o'clock. had them to at least 3:45, some stayed till later. And at the end, we went through pretty much the same PowerPoint that we had went through with you guys. And then we asked them at the end with post-it notes if they wanted to give us any kind of feedback whatsoever. So I didn't want to take a ton of time, but I do want to read through them real quick. Everything from a softball complex pales in importance to being able to get through the hallways, that's a daily struggle. Need more concrete outside the door at the end of the high school hallway. Project management, same or different. Take time to do it right. Heat and fitness center bathrooms. Is this a school plan or a high school plan? No softball complex. No to locker banks, behavior problems. Share your plan to staff before the public. Visual representation would be helpful. Proposal sent to us to look at better. If all this money and time will be spent on the football field and baseball/softball fields, will these sports be played here, currently in Willow? Actual visual representation of the plan. Wi-Fi and cellular services poor. Hallways and lockers are too small. Locker rooms larger. Access to trails and school fours, cross-country trails. Survey all staff through computer survey. Don't expect attendance at meetings after school. Separate doors or double doors by the playground entrance exit to keep heat in. Hallways before clover fields. Hallways are more important than clover baseball fields. Safety issue versus want. Softball complex benefits not worth the investment. The hallways are a safety issue. Survey staff members via email. Not all staff had input. Are we missing priorities of our staff versus other groups? Warming areas by doors to playground to stop cold air from entering the building. Fencing around existing playground and new early childhood playground. Stadium lighting for track meets. Gym bleachers are too small, not enough. Survey staff via email. Bookshelves. Safe rooms for libraries for emergencies. New large softball complex, we need fencing around it and around playgrounds. Fencing around sports complex. Utilize Miracle Inc., Jay Weber for ECFE playground. Listen to requests. It doesn't matter what I think. Yes, fountains in classrooms. So a wide variety of, a lot of conversation was had with the staff, and it was teachers. So what we talked about doing after that is they want to be heard, we want to be able to know that we're communicating with them. So after tonight, and what we're gonna do tonight is just a real quick rundown of where we are, where you think we are. We're not voting on anything, we're not, having major discussions, we're just gonna plan that forward at a special board meeting. But what I am gonna do is, January 31st, which is next Thursday, is be here all day in the boardroom and just invite all staff to come in at any point. We're gonna have some visualization of plans, we're gonna talk about numbers, and then just let them have some conversation and have some conversation back about what might have transpired tonight, where you guys are. So that was that. We talked about a timeline. Tonight, meeting with the teachers and the rest of the staff on the 31st, having an all-day session, and then potentially having a special session. And I don't know if we want to talk about that date now.
We always do it at the end, but they're looking at February 5th, so.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday, February 5th. That was the proposed date that we have a special session then to get back together. So, what I'd like to do is hand these out to you so you have a copy. And it's just a draft again. Remember, this was the working document where we were Xing out and different things, so I want everyone to have one. And these are just budgets. I did meet with an architect yesterday. Okay. Meet with an architect yesterday, just we're really trying to vet the numbers as best we can, so you don't run into a problem of being over budget again. And we talked about where things should land, like if we do, priority one is question one potentially on the ballot, we would ask that maybe we pick the high number, because we gotta get from a range to an actual number at some point when you go to vote for it. So we talk about doing the high number for the priority one potentially, and then for a second question or a second priority or a third, maybe doing a mid-range for that point. So, real quick, for now, just to check in, because you only have an hour tonight, if you could, here, I'm gonna give it to you. Here, Bob, do you want to pass those around too?
teachers had this.
They had that up on the screen and we talked about it a little bit too. Feedback, you know, for the locker rooms was everything from, well, we've done some things with bells, it's not that big of an issue, we've gotten used to it, to, we think it's a critical issue, but, some people talking about should
Yes,
we
like
change?
some are here on the
Yeah.
same topic, where other people are here on a topic,
Right,
and then.
yep, and there's been opportunity, but we wanna make sure there's more opportunity. And remember, as a part of this whole referendum plan, we will have Todd Rapp implement his communication plan throughout. So there will be a lot more communication throughout, and we will be here with you till the end. So, where are we? How are you feeling about priority one scope at this point?
Portable
Yep.
without the public hasn't been able to say anything yet other than one meeting, right?
We've had the community meetings, yep.
Just one though. And you're gonna meet with the teachers on the 31st. We should probably have the public be able to come in and talk too.
And then, okay.
All we've done so
Yeah.
far pretty much is us and the teachers.
Yep, well, and so
Public come in on the 31st?
put an X
Maybe
down.
too much.
And then put notes in there if you would. Fill this out for me so I can take it with me as a working document. You know, but are these, I go back to, just funneling back to, these are the things in priority one that you said are kind of must-haves, that we need to finish things or that you feel are a must-have. So that's, I guess, why we're asking too, are you okay with that scope? Correct, Bob, jump in at any
I
point.
think we took out a lot of things that were pricey, and like football field, really is, it's a practice field, it's not a football field. And I don't know if that was indicated, because maybe it should say, on here, it should say practice football field. It's not really a football field.
Okay, yep,
Even
we can
practice
check.
football fields need goalposts if they're gonna learn how to kick. Or, I don't know. I don't know how goalposts, terribly expensive, I suppose they are, everything is, but that's not a football field, it's a practice field.
Well, I
So
think you
J-
did a good job on prioritizing that
I
number one.
I do too.
Do you need this tonight?
You can email it back to me or whatnot, but I'd like to have
I'd like
just
to
a
digest what this
mini
says.
conversation about, this is just a check-in, because we have 20 minutes.
Right.
Let's check in, we don't have to have a lot of discussion, but, you know, are you good with priority one scope? Are you good with priority one? If you're comfortable with the scope, are you comfortable with that being potentially ballot question one?
I like how they kind of, I think we did a good job of kind of fitting things together and saying this stuff fits together, this stuff fits together, and
And then the second question, are you good with priority two scope? And then do you want it to be potentially a question two? Or is that getting into, you know, you're doing what you're doing for the community versus what you're doing for the school? Those kind of things.
And what is that very last, event parking, either way?
Yep, we're gonna get down to that, but, so, priority two and ballot question two potentially, and put notes in the right column. And do we need a plan for the narrow hallway? It's gotta be a different plan for the elementary versus the high school. And part of it was interesting because the elementary schools weren't well represented in the first time we met with them, and they were there last night, and some of the questions were, well, you can't really do potentially a bank of locker rooms and, or lockers until you're able to make sure that you have proper supervision. You know, we do things though with mirrors and different things to work on that, but really we haven't delved into the details here. We're just trying to get to what does it look like, and then we'll be doing user groups for the people that are involved in that specific item. So there's a lot of more meetings coming up, and we will carry you through on how we work through the process here. And then question one and priority one, we talk about, you know, making sure, and the architect met with me yesterday, working through the numbers, had a few questions, gonna tweak the numbers a little bit, but basically saying, I think you're okay on your numbers, I think you're good. So, but priority one, to make sure, do we use the top number, the top range? Because again, when we bring it to a ballot question, it's gotta have a number, we can't have a range. And then we talked about, if we do a potential question two, do we do the mid-range selection? And then if by chance you wanna do a question three, same thing. maybe a mid-range there too.
Do you feel like, when you met with the staff, that they were able to recognize, like, the priority 2 was, like a separate community complex
Mm-hmm.
and the parking lot?
Yeah, and the reason the parking lot was secondary to priority was because it was tied to that.
Mhm, right.
Yeah, and it was interesting how you guys naturally just came with priority 1, 2, and 3 and had, it's almost separate.
Separation.
Yeah, it's separation there. And then the last question that we have to answer is that parking lot, are we going to do it either way this summer? Only because I know you're getting a little bit of heat to get that done. So is that something you're going to do, have to do, regardless of whether you go to referendum or referendum passes or not? Those are the questions that we'll be looking to work with more on the 5th. Or if that works out for you guys, and you can decide that at the end of the day.
Any questions? Want our names on these? Or just sign them or anything?
You don't have to. But you
You
can.
could put JP and then Jerry could complain.
There we go.
Why not?
All right. Any other questions for Natalie?
Jamie, do you want to clarify, so you would like to see more community input? Like what they feel are our needs? Do they know enough to know your actual needs?
Well, they need to
Versus
know
your
what
own?
we're thinking.
Yeah, big time, yeah.
And that hallway business.
Because if the teachers think we're not communicating with them well, I don't think the public's gonna say, because we're talking to them more than even the public. So, we need to do a better job at that.
We need that communication plan figured out.
Definitely.
Yep.
And I think now that we actually have these as priority 1, priority 2, to be able to explain, this makes a big difference, and whether we call it priority 1, priority 2, or
It is
whatever we
clear.
call with the community, it's not,
That's not such a mess.
yeah, all over the place.
But they all should have the opportunity to be able to change this if
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we
well,
have the
yeah, with their
community
input,
say they
yeah.
want
At least we
lights or
can
not.
clearly explain
But the only
this.
thing is, you gotta be careful, if you ask 100 people, you're gonna have 100 different answers on exactly what's in priority 1 and
Yep.
priority 3, and that's where it comes back to you guys as stewards of the community to figure out what that looks like.
But now we're finally at a point where
Yep.
it's like, this is finishing this, and this is what it involves, so they can see that.
And again, when we do communicate with the community, we've gotta come off unified, because if they're gonna be getting a message that we're at a, disagreement, that's not gonna convey them one way or the other. So we discussed how we're gonna, train us on unification presentation, and I definitely do want their input as well, but I think that's really important. And we did spend a lot of time making these priority decisions, and so we're not going backwards, but definitely willing to listen, but we gotta come off unified.
Well, you wanna for sure have the money amount high enough that you can't go back a second time if you're short,
Or third.
or a third, that's correct.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
all right,
Take
thank you.
these, yeah. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Report.
Just wanted to tell you that we had Martin Luther King in service here, and that was really well received. We had about 9 schools here. The parking lot was full. Actually, that was one of my concerns, is did we have enough parking? Seemed as though it was pretty close. We were full though. And a lot of really good comments, about the building and about the day. So the other thing I just want to make you aware of, I can't remember if I told you the last one, but we are looking really hard as to how all the schools can cooperate and become more efficient, such as training. How do we provide training for some of the things that the teachers talked about today, where we could bring in somebody to do training, but we're not all paying for it. We could split the costs and curriculum, that type of thing. So just know that is well underway now. That's all I'm gonna say.
So those are 9, or you said 9 schools, Carlton County schools?
Yeah,
Was Will on there?
there's a couple of extras.
So they didn't have school on Martin Luther King Day then either?
Excellent. All right, thank you, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Elementary Principal Report, consider that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, everybody got Craig's report? Craig, do you have any highlights?
Just we have the geography bee today, and Riley Sickler was our champion at the geography bee. And a couple weeks ago, we did have the spelling bee. We do have 2 champions for that, Madison Washi and Dallas Johnson from the high school. Other than that, there's a few other things listed, so if you have any questions. Bill Durbin came last week. That was really nice. Came and talked to the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders about writing strategies. He was a very interesting person.
Excellent.
Yep.
Great, thank you. High school principal report. Everybody got that? Billy, Joe, any highlights for us?
I guess I would just say that on the 14th in the morning before conferences, we had our curriculum committees meet, so we had K-12 meetings, and then usually after that, we'll schedule a district curriculum committee, and so I don't know who the member of the board is that's on that committee now. I mean, okay, I'll be getting in touch with you then about a meeting date, so that'll be coming up.
I don't remember if it was your email or not, but Bob mentioned working with other schools. Was that from you? Talking about sharing classes and like with other schools, was that
It's
from you?
probably me, probably one of my
Bob.
emails.
Okay. But obviously, our concern is just like before, we never get kids who wanna go up there or down there and they don't wanna come here. Is there?
Yeah, and the theory is we're doing low incidence classes, so classes where you have 5 to 10 kids in it. And the thing that might be different now than the last perhaps 3 times that I've done this is that the technology is different now.
Yeah.
It is such that the transportation may not be an issue, and just the format that we can put it in, kids are used to now. They all have one-to-one devices, so there's hope there.
Like remote
Exactly.
teacher somewhere.
Yeah,
and
it
take
could be a blended
Like a
class or
Skype
something.
kind of a thing or whatever it is called.
Could be that, but that's what we're looking into is we're all in the same boat.
It's great.
You know, you're getting less and less kids, and a lot of the schools are struggling, and so how can we go about, sharing some common sense things? You know, we are in competition with each other, but we also realize we can make each other stronger, so.
And to be able to offer additional courses would be super.
Great. Thank you. Any board committee reports? Any board committees meet? Did finance meet? I can't remember. Oh, that was before. Alright. So, good things happening. We should add the geography and spelling from
Elementary or
elementary.
spelling.
Do that. Congratulations to Dallas Johnson for winning the spelling bee, and then you can read those.
And Riley Sickler for the geography beat, and Madison Washington, Dallas Johnson for the, Dallas was already there, and Madison Washington for the spelling bee.
I also want to say a thank you for Pam Erickson in particular. She was the one that organized the whole there's a committee, but there's always a point person. She was the point person, just did a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to recognize her as well.
Thank you.
And we also got a mail from one of the students saying that there's a bake sale at the Cromwell Moose Lake Girls Games, so everybody's there. You could donate food.
Student council, yes.
Right, that student council, I couldn't remember what it was.
Alright, agenda item number 1, what we'll do is we'll get a motion in a second, then we'll discuss. So, consider approving updated school board policies listed in hundreds, 200s, 300s, 400s.
I'll make a motion.
Alright, can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Alright, any discussion? This is the once a year, just run through.
Well, you've done, this is your third reading, so you actually don't approve it this time.
Okay, any discussion, no discussion, all in favor of approving school board, updated school board policies as listed, say aye. Alright, opposed, motion carries. Item number 2, consider transferring $70,000 from the sale of family center to capital fund 5. Can I get a motion and a
I'll make a
second?
motion and we can have a discussion.
Okay, and a second, I'll make that second, and discussion.
Can you explain the reason?
Yeah, so we sold the family center, for about 170, somewhere in that range, and originally we were gonna put it all into capital, but, because of the way school finances are, we put it into general fund so that if we, so we could have a decision. And the finance committee chose to keep 100 in general and put 70 in capital.
Doesn't it have to be used for capital expenditures though? Because
No.
it doesn't have.
No, we found that out.
Okay, that's good. That helps. The general fund.
Okay, any other questions? Then all in favor of approving transferring the 70,000 from the sale of family centered capital, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item number 3, consider approving the 2019-22, 2022 superintendent's contract. Everybody should have gotten in the board packet, the rundown on what has been proposed.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, and I'll second that. Any discussion?
Still don't agree with it. I don't think it should have a 3-year, it should be a 1-year because of the test scores. If the test scores don't improve next year, we're still paying 2% increase plus actually another $3,000 because he wants another $250 a month into the retirement fund, so that's an extra $3,000. So it's actually a $5,500 a year raise.
And again, just a reminder that the superintendent, I mean, as per school policies, and they're in the 300s, the superintendent is not responsible for, he's responsible for the principals who are responsible for, but the test scores are not something that are, and that's one measurement to say that is what is the entire contract is hinging on, is being very short-sighted in my opinion, in the fact that we really are not giving credit for the successes, for the completion of this building, the sale of the old building, working on getting this land up for sale. There's some big accomplishments that are going kind of unnoticed when all we do is focus on test scores.
And I think, and I'm not sure exactly how the numbers work, but I think the fact that you went to 2 singles instead of families is maybe helping to wash what the numbers you just talked about.
The first part, the 2%, yeah.
Yeah, and it does help to clean that up. I
But
mean,
it's
or
another-
to balance it a little bit
But
better.
it's another $3,000 when you offer another $250 a month in the retirement. So it's $3,000 more a year plus the 2%.
That's, and then now you're saving with that.
Then it's $3,000.
I favor a 1-year contract and see if we can improve things with the education and then consider a 2-year contract, so.
I favor the 3-year. I think there's gotta be consistency, and I think if we pull out any kind of changes now, it would have a negative impact in the long-term goals that we're trying to establish. And I don't know who's to blame, I'm not the type of person pointing fingers at anybody or any department, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with us. We're the ones that provided, I wasn't here, but guidance to him in terms of setting priorities, but for those reasons.
I also think that pushing this to a 1-year contract to see if test scores, I mean, we just heard the presentation and all kind of shook our heads saying, yeah, we understand this is gonna be more than a 1-year thing to get this turned around. And now we're really, I think that the pressure, not just on Bob to turn this around, but if we approve a 1-year or push for a 1-year or say that, that pressure is transferring down. And the teachers are feeling that pressure to turn things around in a year, even though we all just acknowledge that it takes more than a year to turn this around. And so to give time.
The test scores, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a huge issue, and everyone's plate, teachers' plate, all of our plates, and it's our responsibility, I think, to provide priorities to Bob so that he can set priorities to his staff. And I think, once we get more educated in terms of what kind of tools we can better support them on to better succeed, we'll have a better outcome. We gotta make those types of decisions, and pulling the wrench and yanking out any changes, it's gonna have a negative impact for all of us.
I respectfully disagree. The boss is the boss. It's the boss's fault, not ours. If we don't know what's going on, if I'd have known that our test scores are gonna be like that, he wouldn't be here yesterday, but we don't know until the end of the year. So it's not ours. We only know what we know. So that's why I'm saying 1 year. And let's just take a vote.
Yeah, the new standards from NSBA under superintendent specific duties shall. The very last one says assume ultimate responsibility for all aspects of the district's operation.
But how many, other, are there? I mean, that's the last one.
Oh, yeah, I know,
I mean,
there's others,
a
but I'm
number.
saying,
Right,
because it's too easy to slide over that and not pay attention
but
to
I'm
it.
saying I'm saying by saying that, we're weighting that one as being more weighted than all the rest
It
of
just
those.
encapsulates all of them. I'll
Let's
call for the
Let's
vote.
vote, okay, we'll call for a vote, is this, do we need a roll call, or do we?
I'd
it's
ask
just
for a
vote?
roll call
Well,
vote.
you can, but I don't think you need to on this.
Well,
That's
but
a
I'd
roll
like
call.
That's
roll
for,
call.
okay, we'll do a roll call vote, I vote, yes to approving the contract. Kim,
I vote yes to approve your contract.
I vote no.
No.
Lisa,
Yes.
and Julie.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, Bob's gonna lead contract, so, thank you. And that is all the agenda items, so we're down to setting meeting dates.
We should probably move the regular board off of the President's Day, so I was looking at the 25th.
Last Monday in the month. That's good for me.
February 25th.
I'm sorry, the 25th of January? What?
February.
25.
25.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
Glasses are on your head.
Oh, yeah.
I was just not in town that day.
Okay,
Is
Okay.
there any possibility we could do it on the 19th? Lisa, are you back on the 19th by any
And
chance?
that's the 19th, yes.
Could it be possible to do it on a Tuesday, the 19th?
It's good for me.
that works.
Works for me, I have a meeting at noon, Mountain Iron, I'll be back here by 5 or 6.
I didn't factor in holidays, I just made a point of never missing third Monday of the
Tuesday the
month.
nineteenth.
And
It's-
after February, it works out to again.
Let me go back.
Is everyone
Okay.
okay with the 19th of February instead of the
I'll do
25th?
that too, so.
Okay.
6
Okay,
o'clock?
February 19th, 6 p.m.
Can we
Got
meet
it.
on President's Day?
25th and 26th.
Where does it
Okay.
say we cannot meet
I'm
on
not
President's Day? Oh, never mind then.
6
Okay, so
o'clock.
6 PM on the 19th, okay?
Special meeting to kind of see which direction we're going with the ICS and our bond thing. Would February 5th work? Oh, that is election day, you're right.
Oh,
If we
that's
did
right.
that, we'd have to do it before 6, you probably, 4th, they gave me 2 dates, the 4th or the 5th. 4th is a Monday.
Monday is.
Monday the 4th.
You said February?
This is February.
ICS.
What time would you like it at? It's on Monday the 4th.
June 6th.
Mm-hmm.
6 o'clock?
Or how does anybody want to try for 6:30?
So 6 PM.
6 p.m.?
No, 6:30.
You need 6:30?
Well,
That's fine with me. It doesn't
well,
matter.
That works.
If you need 6:30, I'm fine with that.
I'm not 100% sure. But let's go for 6:30 then.
Okay, so 6:30 on the 4th will be the ICS special meeting.
Late then.
And then we should have a finance meeting, talk about budget and cuts and things like that, so.
And that is Kim and Jamie and I.
Is that something that you could do during the day, or is that something you wanna do after school?
On the 4th again?
No, it's
anytime.
whenever you want.
Jane, what time do you start your shift?
5:30
Oh,
to 5:30, so I don't get here till 6.
all night? No, all day. Okay, morning, okay. Okay, you're,
Just pick a date.
Let's pick a day, I know which days I'm gonna be gone.
Okay.
I will not be here 7th through the 9th. And,
From the week of
the week of the 11th
11th.
works, except for
How about
14,
30th or
15, I'm
31st?
going out of town that
We're gonna do it, yeah, how about 30th or 31st of January? 30th, Wednesday,
I can do Wednesday, I can't do 31st, I'm out
Alright.
of town.
how about January 30th, what time works?
do you not work that day, Jamie?
Correct.
Does 6 p.m. work or 5
It
p.m.?
can be during the day on the 30th, because he doesn't work.
Oh, you wanna do
It's
it
up to
at
you.
noon?
Sure.
Maybe
Okay.
do lunch?
I think we got a social butterfly on the board.
January 30th, 12.
January 30th, 12 o'clock, okay? Finance.
So,
Alright,
Make a motion to adjourn.
alright, second, any discussion? No, all in favor, say aye. Alright, motion carries.
Finish 45 minutes.